we're working on our 4th of July quilt. We have it all pressed out. We brought it back to the sewing machine to sew the last two halves of the quilt together. So we are very excited. And when you're sewing seams and you have such a very heavy bulk here that you're carrying, it's nice to have a wide table to put all of this on so that you are not torquing the fabric as you sew. And we sew about 4 inches and we readjust. And then we're back to correcting the quilt and fluffing it up, pulling it right so we have another good foot or two straight, but that the bulk of it is on the table so that we're not having too much weight pulling and torquing our quilt as we go. And our seams are flattened real nice with the iron, so when we go over our seams, we're putting our seams together with a flat strip. Let's take a look at that strip. And that way we only need to worry about the seams on one side. So putting sashing in between your blocks is one way not to have to worry about which direction your seams are going in, because when you're sewing the sashing to the block or to the quilt, you're only looking at one set of seams, and those seams should be face up. So you're going very cautiously over those seams, and you don't have to worry about them being pulled the wrong direction and sewn down, making a crease in your quilt. Because then when you quilt your quilt top and you put it together with the batting and the backing, often what happens is you have an extra bulk in that quilt. And as a quilter, you want to eliminate as much bulk as you can, make it look as seamless as possible. And therefore, we like to keep our seams directional to where they are not creating too much bulk in the fabric. So if we had seams instead of sashing, we would want them to be ironed the opposite direction, so they're both laying opposite each other and not creating those extra 2 plus 4 plus the original 2 in the layers. So here's our piece of sashing, and as you can see on the sashing, we have sewn it together and then we've creased it, or excuse me, ironed it, pressed it open to where those seams, instead of creating 3 layers, are only creating 2 layers. So when we come across a seam, again, it's going to lay flat. We're not having too much bulk. And by ironing or pressing each piece as you create your quilt, it's so much easier when you have several of them put together to then iron them or press the seams, because you're pressing every single time you're adding another piece to that quilt block. So again, proper pressing and proper angle of our seams are going to make you so much happier each step of the process, because you don't bend a needle, you don't break a needle, you're not pulling, you're not torquing, you're holding that smooth, you're sewing that steady, and your sewing machine is only going through maybe 3 or 4 layers of fabric instead of 5, 6, 7 that different seams on top of each other could create. And another tip with your needle, if you're still having problem with your needle, it's time to switch your needle. It's good to switch your needle every 1 to 3 quilts, depending upon the size of your quilt, because you don't want to be sewing with a dull needle. You want to sew with a sharp needle so it goes in and out of the fabric, not causing too much noise, not causing torquing, not causing pulling, and it's just a beautiful, fun project to do. And when you come up to a seam, you can stick a needle in it to help guide you on the bottom side to take another look at it to make sure those seams are staying in the direction which you've ironed them, so that you're not creating that much bulk and just remove that seam as you go over them, because again, they're laying flat with the seam open on the bottom of the machine. So I hope you have enjoyed our tips and tricks today, as once again you are seeing this beautiful 4th of July quilt that will soon be on the long arm and getting its final touches. Show and tell coming up soon, my friends. Have a great day.